The Rams found their quarterback in Matthew Stafford. They have re-signed him. Now, what does that mean for the rest of the squad?
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast, your team every day. You're a Rams person. You are here on Locked On Rams. Make sure you click that subscribe button, both in your podcast feed and on our Locked On Rams YouTube channel as well. Thanks for making us a part of what you do every single day. My name is Travis Rogers. I host the Rams pregame show, halftime show, postgame show on their flagship station, 710 ESPN. Thanks for checking us out. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, lots to get to today. We're going to talk about Robert Woods getting traded to Tennessee for a 6th-round pick. We're going to talk about who has come in and who has gone out and where the Rams are at this point in free agency. Of course, the draft is right around the corner as well, so not a complete project, but certainly a lot of work put in so far to get to this point. We'll kind of go through the highs and lows of what the Rams have gotten. But the big news over the weekend, of course, is Matthew Stafford gets re-upped. He gets a 4-year deal, $160 million. About $130 million of that is guaranteed. Of course, that's always the magic number, right? The dollars that are actually guaranteed as opposed to the total value, because we know how it goes. If everything's going well, it gets restructured and pushed down the line. If things are not going well, that money that's on there never really gets delivered anyway. But let's talk about Matthew Stafford and what this means specifically for the Rams. I want to start right here. I want to start with how easy it was. I want to start with how drama-free it all was, about how there was news that the Rams and Matthew Stafford were working towards a contract extension, that it was expected to get done, and then poof, it's just done one day. You wake up one morning and, oh, wow, Matthew Stafford got a nice new contract extension. He's going to be with the Rams for another 4 seasons, coming off a Super Bowl win, incredibly lucrative for him and his family. That's great news, well-deserved to be sure. And, oh, by the way, there wasn't this, well, he wants this and we're only willing to give him that. And he wants to have control over this person and that person. And he needs to have this guy here. And he doesn't like this player or that player. He doesn't like the general manager. Him and the head coach are at odds. And he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And I'll just hold out, or I'll quit, or I'll go do this, that, or the other thing. Sound familiar? Yeah, maybe one of his former opponents in the NFC North may have had a similar drama to that. But I think it's really important that the Rams got through this with no drama. Right. And reportedly, he left a little bit of money on the table that will allow the Rams to go spend on other players, that will allow the Rams to maybe redo Aaron Donald's deal a little bit differently, that will allow them to have some flexibility, which is important because we've seen it before. Right. If you are heavily locked in one place, it's fewer dollars you can spend other places. Think about some of the teams that we've seen make Super Bowl runs of late. We've seen it with Patrick Mahomes. We saw it with Jared Goff. We saw it with Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's go back a little further than that with Ben Roethlisberger, with Russell Wilson. These are guys that were on rookie contracts when they went to the Super Bowl because the quarterback isn't absorbing so much of your allotted dollars that you can spend on the offensive line. You can spend on weapons. You can spend on the defense. You can spend in all the other places because ultimately the quarterback's going to get paid. The quarterback's going to get what he gets because he's the most important player on the field. We all understand that. And it allows them to go spend other places. Well, Matthew Stafford certainly is not a young player. This is not the first lucrative deal that he's gotten. But when you leave a little bit on the table, it allows you to go do all of those other things. Now, you could also argue that, hey, look, who knows, man? I'm going to get mine while I can get it and keep moving down the road. They don't think like that. The Rams don't think like that. Matthew Stafford doesn't think like that. And that's why I think they're incredibly set up to have success moving forward because they're willing to be flexible. They're willing to be nimble. And there's just no drama. We've talked about this on Locked On Rams before. This is why you got to click that subscribe button so you know what's going on each and every day. That the Rams are as drama-free as they are is not meaningless. Right? You could just say, yeah, it's probably better to have it than not have it. But at the end of the day, what does it matter? What it matters is, and this kind of goes back to something we were talking about with Andrew Whitworth. This is something that we've talked about with a lot of other guys. This idea of who is the man, who is the guy, who's making the money, who's setting the tone. And the Rams have it locked. They have it incredibly. There's no drama. The quarterback is the leader. Andrew Whitworth is the leader. Aaron Donald is the leader. Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, whoever it might be. I know a lot of those guys are down the road. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. But the fact of the matter is, it's everybody pulling on the same end of the rope. And it's cliched and it's a little bit trite and it's, corny to be sure. But the fact of the matter is, the Rams don't have this drama. The Rams don't have the drama that goes on in other places where look at what's going on in Cleveland. Look at what's going on with Deshaun Watson and the money that he's getting. And Russell Wilson wants out. And look, it happens. The Rams just went through quarterback drama a little while ago by moving Jared Goff, but it was clean, right? It was, you know what? This doesn't work. We're going to move him out. We're going to bring a new guy in. Okay, this does work. We're Super Bowl champs. Let's extend him. Let's keep it moving. Let's make sure we can pay this guy or that guy or Aaron. We're going to have to redo Aaron Donald. We need to pay Jalen, whatever the numbers might be. That they get it done as quickly as they have is very, very good news for them in the drama department. Here's the other part about it, and arguably the easiest part about it, right? The football will continue to be very, very good offensively. I know that Matthew Stafford has put to rest all of the, is it him? Is it the Lions and all that stuff? We're done with that. He goes and he wins the Super Bowl, and he does it by being fantastic, not just good, but fantastic. They win the Super Bowl because of him, the NFC Championship game because of him, the divisional round against Tampa because of him. He was terrific along the way. Now, look, injuries, right? Always a part of it. Age, always a part of it. But there's really no reason to think that he's not going to continue to be that guy. Think about this. What does the combination between him and Cooper Kupp look like in year 2? Those guys look like they've been together forever. Those guys look like he looked with Calvin Johnson. Those guys like Montana and Rice, right? Guys that just together for a very long time. And all of a sudden, it's like they're just kind of a secondhand language, an unspoken language that they both understand. They were able to find that in the very first year. Now, all of a sudden, you're coming back for the second year. What does that look like? Can't wait to see it. He is the exact right quarterback for this offense. He makes good decisions more often than not. He's just athletic enough to make something happen, and he's tough. And this is what they needed, and that's what they went and got, and now they're going to have him for the next 4 years. And that's the jumping off point for every team in the NFL. Is your quarterback good? If he is, good. Check the box, make sure he's got the money that he needs, and keep moving. Now start building the rest of your team. Well, the Rams can check that box and feel very, very good about it because leading up until last year, it was always, well, maybe, we'll see. They got it done. They get the deal done. It's done without drama, and now you can get back to the football and making sure that he has the weapons he needs around him along the way. Which brings us to the next topic. Robert Woods is not going to be one of those weapons. He is headed to Tennessee. What does that mean for the Rams in their Super Bowl defense? That is coming up next. But first, Built Bar, right? It's coming off the weekend. Sometimes you make some decisions in the weekend that maybe, not really great, not maybe the best thing for you. You got to have some options that are good for you that taste great, and that's Built Bars, right? All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, 100% real chocolate. You know what that means? It means it tastes really good. And it not only tastes good, it's a good decision, right? You know what the bad decisions are. I don't need to tell you the chips and the crackers and the candy bars and all that kind of stuff. Most Built Bars, 130 calories. That's not much. 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Look at the back label on the other things that you're snacking on, and you're going to make sure that you have those Built Bars ready in your car, in your backpack, in your desk, wherever it is at home. Make sure that you got Built Bars everywhere you go so you can make those great decisions, feel good about it, and it tastes really good along the way. They're always about the taste. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use that promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Rams your first listen every day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL, Locked On Experts, covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It, too, is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, let's talk about Robert Woods. We talked about this last week on Locked On Rams. Click that subscribe button. You need to do that. Tell 10 friends, and then they can tell 10 friends, and then we all win. Okay, so Robert Woods is headed to Tennessee. The Rams get a 6th-round draft pick in return. Now, let's start right there. It did seem like the Rams could have gotten maybe a little bit more for Robert Woods. Robert Woods is a legitimate number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. Not a kind of 2-3, has a good game here, doesn't have a good game there. Robert Woods is a high-level NFL football player. From the moment he's come to L.A., really from the moment he got drafted in the league and went to Buffalo, he's been a very, very good football player. So you would think a number 2 receiver in this league would get you more than a 6th-round pick coming back. Here's why that's what it was. He's coming off of a knee injury. He's 30 years old. Okay. And it's as simple as that, that while the surgeons and the orthopedists, they know how to fix these things, you're just never quite sure what it's going to look like when they come back. And you're really not quite sure what it's going to look like if they come back at certain, mileposts along the way in their age. If you're 25, it's one thing. If you're 30, it's a different thing. If you're 35, it's a different thing than it is at 30. So I think there was some reluctance maybe on some of the teams around the NFL to maybe not go as big to get a player as good as Robert Woods, because there's at least a reasonable chance that maybe he's not quite the player that he was. Now, we know he works hard. We know that he grinds. We know that he's tough. We know that he's a pro. So I would expect him to be a very, very good player. But I have faith in Les Snead that this is what he could get. This is what he could get. And that's how it's going to be moving forward. You knew somebody had to go, right? Let's go to the football part of this. The football part of this is that you can't have four guys who think that they should have the football, right? Cooper Kupp's your number one guy. Duh, right? Cooper Kupp is going to be the guy that gets the look just about every single time you break that huddle. You're going to have Allen Robinson, who you just got from the Bears, who you just paid a lot of money to come in. You're going to make sure that the guy that you just paying $10 million a year, or whatever the final number might be, is getting the football a lot along the way, that he's happy, that he's getting what he needs. So he's your number two guy as of right now on the roster, right? With Robert Woods going to Tennessee, it's very hard to envision a place where Odell Beckham Jr. is not back on this team. Now, it's not done yet. We'll see how it shakes out. And there's all, like much like Von Miller. We thought Von Miller was going to come back at one point, and now he's a Buffalo Bill. So, never say never, but it appears that OBJ is coming back. You can't have Kupp, Robinson, OBJ, and then have Robert Woods just, standing on the sidelines waiting to get into the game. Think about what it means for Tutu Atwell, who, good luck, buddy. Godspeed, whatever comes your way next, that, time will tell. But Van Jefferson, a regular part of that offense, he's going to come back as well, more than likely. So somebody had to be the odd man out in this situation. And as much as Robert Woods has meant to this organization over the last several years, he was clearly going to be the odd man out. This was the guy that, I hate to put it like this, but whatever. He's the guy that's most replaceable. You can get what you get from him in Allen Robinson from a football perspective. Now, here's where it gets a little trickier. The final part of the Robert Woods equation. Robert Woods is one of those guys that everybody on that team talks about in his work ethic and his toughness and his leadership. Now, think about who's left, and we'll get into this coming up in the next part of Locked On Rams. But think about all of the guys who have left on this team. Okay, first and foremost, you've lost Andrew Whitworth, who was the heart and soul, certainly on the offensive side of the ball, as far as leadership goes. We've called father figure, team leader, team captain, whatever you want. Andrew Whitworth was certainly that guy. On the other side, I know Von Miller was here for a very short time, but I do think he had a very positive impact on what they're doing. And, oh, by the way, you got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey over there. So the defense is going to be just fine. But if you take Whitworth off of the offense, who's retired, and now you take Robert Woods, who's another one of those players that everybody talks about, just toughness and leadership. And there are so many times where he made a tough third down catch. He's a guy that goes over the middle. He's a guy that's willing to take a hit. There was never a time in Robert Woods' tenure as an LA Ram where you're thinking, dude, what is that guy doing? Why is he doing that? Why he's got to do this instead of that? He was on point over and over again and relentlessly tough. We saw him take some unbelievable shots. We saw him stick his face into some places where not a lot of wide receivers are really anxious to go. You saw him help Cooper Kupp in the sense that they were kind of interchangeable. Now, Kupp obviously is probably a more talented guy than Robert Woods, but when you have one guy that can play all three positions, and then you got another guy who can play all three positions, which Kupp and Woods obviously can, much, much more difficult to defend than having three guys that do one thing, or having one guy who can do three things, but two guys that are going to kind of be locked into their roles, which with OBJ and Allen Robinson may be the case. With Woods, you were incredibly multiple. How many times have you heard Sean McVay, we like to be multiple in what we do. We like to make sure that we have a lot of options. We go on a lot of scrimmage, and Matthew Stafford. That whole spiel, that's because Robert Woods brings a whole bunch of multiplicity to what this team does. I hope that he plays incredibly well. I hope that he goes out there and catches 10 passes a game in every game that he plays, as long as it's not against the Rams. I am a huge Robert Woods fan. It was a great fit. He's a USC guy. He comes back home and the Rams are coming back. It feels like he's getting ready to be the number one. And they draft Cooper Kupp, and they signed Sammy Watkins. He never got a chance to be kind of that number one guy along the way. He was always the second option, a great second option to be sure with everything that he did, but definitely a second option for most of his time here in LA. He'll be a second option, I'm sure, in Tennessee as well. But he will be missed for sure. A very, very good player for the Rams over the last few years. And just as much as his catches and his touchdowns and the 3rd and 33s, which is probably my personal favorite memory that Robert Woods had, 3rd and 33 against the Giants a few years ago, hit him with a 5 or 6 yard little slant, gone, all the way up, touchdown along the way. Just a great moment. They're going to miss his leadership more than anything else. You saw it when they won the Super Bowl. And you saw all the players talking about, they're holding up the trophy and they're laughing and the confetti's coming down and everybody's having a great time. And Woods is out there with his teammates. It meant as much to him, even though he didn't get to play in the last part of the season, certainly didn't get to play throughout the postseason, as it did to anybody else, because he was here when the team was bad. And, he was here when the team got good. He was here when all of a sudden everything started to click. And just through bad luck, as a fluke injury at practice, he's not there for the ultimate prize, but certainly had a lot of sweat, blood equity in this thing as well. So congratulations to Robert Woods on a great career here in Los Angeles. Wish him well in Tennessee. And now the Rams have a 6th-round draft pick coming back. So he is just one of a handful of guys that are coming and going along the way. We'll talk about who you're going to miss the most and who you maybe can move on from a little bit easier than some of the others. That is coming up next on Locked on Rams, but not before BetOnline. You watch some games this weekend, right? It's the tournament. It's that time of year again. College basketball is all over the place. Latest odds, contests, and player props. BetOnline.net is the number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info, right? You're trying to get down on some of these games. You're trying to make sure that you got a little bit of the inside information. You like this team in this region, right? BetOnline remains the best spot for all of that stuff. Your scores, your podcasts, your news this season, and it's not just hoop. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting in your favorite Vegas casino games as well. So head on over there to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game begins. Okay, thanks again for making Locked on Rams your first listen every single day. My name is Travis Rogers. You can follow me on Twitter as well, at Travis Rogers. Of course, you can listen to my radio show that I do on ESPN LA 710 in Los Angeles, the Travis and Sliwa Show, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. every single day. We talk a lot of Rams football there as well. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of guys that are coming in or staying, and let's talk about a couple of guys that have left the team and where that leaves the Rams moving into their title defense here coming up in just a couple of months. Let's talk about the two guys that I think the Rams are going to miss the most, the guys that are no longer members of the organization, or at least not playing as members of the organization. And then we'll talk about a couple of guys who I think they're going to be okay. Even though they were popular players, even though they're very good players, I think they have some options. They're going to be able to cover that up a little bit. Number one, with a bullet, with an absolute rocket, is Andrew Whitworth. I'm very concerned about how that's going to go. Andrew Whitworth is a fine football player, a very good one, right? We've talked about it. Borderline Hall of Fame player, starting left tackle in the Super Bowl at age 40. He's able to do some things that are just incredibly uncommon. He's an incredibly gifted athlete and football player. And that's the very last thing that I'm worried about, right? Joe Noteboom's going to slide in. Joe Noteboom is a very capable NFL player. He's a versatile player, and he's been waiting to get this opportunity. And when he's had opportunities to fill in for Whitworth occasionally, he's filled in admirably. He's been fine. It's not a football thing at all. Joe Noteboom, the football distance between where Noteboom is now and where Whitworth is now, it's close enough. I think Whitworth probably just, with the experience and everything else, probably a little bit better, but that's not the issue. The issue is, did you read that stuff that everybody was writing about him? Did you listen to what Stan Kroenke said and Sean McVay and Les Snead and all his teammates said? There, almost nobody mentioned football. I had him on the Travis and Sliwa Show a couple of days ago on Friday afternoon, and I asked him, I said, where does the leadership come from when you leave? And he said that he thinks they're going to be okay. He talked about some of the other players, the Cooper Kupps and the Matthew Staffords and some of the other players along the offense. They're going to step up and take some leadership roles. And that's fine, and that's what I would expect him to say, because I think he probably believes that he's put them in a position to kind of take over the reins for this thing. We'll see. Leadership, especially in the NFL, is unbelievably important and very hard to find. And when you have it as right as the Rams had it on Andrew Whitworth, you almost never can keep it going when a guy like that leaves. So when he decided to retire, and why not, right? 16 years in the league, Super Bowl championship, et cetera, perfect time to walk away. And I hope he has and long, happy, healthy, productive retirement, doing whatever it is that he would like to do, because he's an amazing guy that's going to have a lot of options along the way. The Rams are going to miss him in the building, at practice, in the weight room, on those Thursday sessions, just on airplanes and buses and hotel rooms, and all the times that teammate locker rooms that they get to spend time around each other that has nothing to do with, oh, you need to block that guy. You need to set your feet like this. You need to make sure that when they do a TE stunt that you got, it's none of that. It's just the talk. It's just the leadership that comes along with somebody like that. So for me, that's the guy that's number one at the list that has gone out so far, that they haven't replaced that particular component of it. And number two, similar, but add in another level of just unbelievable play, is Von Miller. I know he was here for a very short period of time. I know that he's not a guy that you think of the way you think of Aaron Donald, but my, oh my, was he great in the playoffs. Was he unbelievable towards the end of the season. There wasn't a game that went by where you didn't talk about, well, you see what Von Miller did? Von Miller was getting to the quarterback every single weekend. And as good as Aaron Donald is, he's a lot better when you got somebody like Von Miller, because I can't double and triple Donald on every snap, or Miller's going to eat me alive. So you got to kind of pick your poison a little bit. I think he's going to be missed a great deal. Now, I don't think the Rams made a mistake in letting him go to Buffalo. It sounds contradictory, but as much as he will be missed at that price for that amount of time, I get it. The Rams, the Bills, I should say, kind of made the Rams decision for him. I don't need to, I can't go there. I can, if we're close, right? If we're, hundreds of thousands away, or maybe even a million or two away, we can maybe kind of negotiate something that's going to work out. But when you have somebody that just comes in over the top, it's like, okay, well, yeah, you win. You've got it. Think Albert Pujols with the Angels. The Cardinals made an offer that was generous and good, and all the time that he'd spent there in World Series and MVPs. And the Angels came in, the Cardinals like, look, what do you want me to do with that? I'm not doing that. That's out of your, that's crazy. Buffalo needed a guy like like Von Miller. So they went out, they had to pay a premium. They got it done. I think it's going to work out really well for him. I think he's still an incredible player, but on the defensive side, I think he's the guy that the Rams missed the most. Not just because he's a valuable leader, but he's just that good of a football player still at this point. So we'll see who they slide in there. I think that's a big loss. Two guys that I think maybe you can live with and move on, and maybe, we'll see. Sadly, unfortunately, I think one of them is Robert Woods. You have Allen Robinson. You're going to probably have Odell Beckham Jr. Even if Odell's not there and you've got Van Jefferson, you've got Cooper Kupp, you've got really good options at that particular position. Robert Woods is at a certain age. Robert Woods is coming off of a significant injury. All of these things kind of stack together with the guys that you already have on your roster, the guys that you brought in, like Robinson. I think you kind of keep it moving. Now, the leadership portion, like we were talking about with Andrew Whitworth there a minute ago, certainly he has a lot of that. That's going to be difficult to replace, but you have good players at that position that I think can slide in and cover that. If it was just Kupp and Woods, and all of a sudden you just brought in Allen Robinson, you still had those three guys, then I wouldn't like it nearly as much. But knowing that OBJ is likely to come back, and knowing some of the other players that you have on your roster, unfortunately, I think he's a guy you could probably play without and not miss it from a football perspective necessarily. And then finally, go to the other side of the ball, it's Darius Williams. I like Darius Williams a lot. 2 years ago, he was a really important player to what they did. He played hard. He was kind of found money, right? They signed him off the street. He's a good player, and they got to deal with the Rams. And last year, he was okay. And it felt like it was trending in the wrong direction. It felt like he was getting ready to lose his job until the guy that was getting ready to take it, Robert Rochelle, got injured. And so now Williams was back in there, and he was okay. I think this is one of the positions that the Rams are willing to try things on, to go a little green, to go cheap, to go undrafted, to go late drafted, to put guys out there that maybe don't have the experience, certainly not like a Jalen Ramsey or anything like that. But even a guy like Darius Williams, look, we're going to have to do it. Les Snead said it on my radio show. We as an organization, we're willing to put guys in a position that maybe other teams aren't, because we have to, because we can't, because we pay Aaron Donald, because we pay Matthew Stafford and Kupp and all the other guys that they're going to make sure get theirs. You're a little shorthanded in the pocketbook and some other plays. I got to have to make some sacrifices, right? Okay, I'll go over here and maybe we'll do it at corner. And I think that's what happens with Darius Williams. I think they'll be able to keep that thing running pretty well, despite the fact that he was a good player for the Rams. Okay, I want to talk more about Andrew Whitworth coming up tomorrow. Like I mentioned, he came on my radio show and said some really interesting things about his time in Los Angeles. That's coming up on Locked On Rams on Tuesday. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It, too, is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.